Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Dracovin Empire, and are you ready to dive back into Golarion, setting for the Pathfinder role-playing game system? We're heading back in time in Golarion. So we're not only entering a time-space portal that's going to take us from Earth to Golarion, we're also going back in time in Golarion, the Valashai Empire, and learning all about it today. So if you're ready to go, join me, your host here, Tian Xia, Dracovin, your guide in time and space. You'll have to take my hand. Give me a little bit of tip before we go. Make sure you stop by over on YouTube. And if you're not there already, subscribe. And let me know what you think of all this in the comments. The past awaits. Let's get heading there. We have arrived back in the ancient days of Tian Xia, far beyond when humans ruled this place. An age of legends. When some of the other ancestries did exist here, but many of the ones that we know about today did not. Now, there are some sources, but they are a mixed bag of information, and I've been having to piece through them to give you an idea of the Valashai Empire. The three main sources that I'm going to kind of reference, though, in my puzzling them together, is, of course, Dragon Empire's Gazetteer, the original one, which does have some outdated terminology and information, Mythic Realms, and, of course, the Tian Xia World Guide. The World Guide gives us a little bit of a history. The Gazetteer gives us a little bit of history. Both of them, all of them prevent the Valashai Jungle, which is the heartland of where the Valashai Empire was. Okay. Now that we've started with these basics of our ideas, we do have to start discussing these people, these places, these things, these stuff. So to start out with, I'm showing a more modern map of Tian Xia. Why am I showing this here? Because the Valashai Empire was a grand empire that existed in the Valashai jungle and much of southern Tian Xia. This was during the Age of Legends, one of the more ancient ages within Golarion. We are far before Earthfall. Now, it is true that Earthfall brought this age to the end, and it's true that they were contemporaries of things like the Aslanti Empire. But Valashai, we don't know how connected they were to them. It's the fact is they were on the other side of the world, quite literally, hard to say. There is a lot about them that is missing. And that's kind of where I'm going to talk about this today. Because the fact is, a lot of these ancient empires are important to talk about. If I'm making adventures in the Valashai jungle or in southern Tian Xia, I could encounter ruins or things left over from the Valashai Empire, from even the empire that preceded it, the Jade Hegemon. The fact is, they aren't in massive number, and we know things about them, but it's, again, I would like to explore these ancient empires a little bit more, and, you know, shout out, hey, Paizo, please do that. We're using these. These are a thing that us as GMs, DMs, players, you know, we use these places, we visit these places, we learn about them. Let's talk about the Empire, its history, who it was. We'll talk about the people here, the Valashai, a little bit on their own, but we have to understand, again, showing the jungle, because we don't have any good images of them. The fact is, we know this empire arose in that ancient times, basically at the back end of the Jade Hegemon, when the Mushanar, basically their empire upon Golarion fell. And this is a millennia before the first humans were on Tian Xia. This is an ancient day. This was an empire where the Valashai, who were alien, extraterrestrial conquerors, came here and basically conquered this region. Effectively, they came in, were cruel, conquered, enslaved, but, you know, did horrific experiments on all the locals, and basically disassembled what remained of the Jade Hegemon. It was on the foundations of the Jade Hegemon that they built their empire. Basically, they came in, took over what was left. Now, we know they left Golarion, theoretically, when Earthfall hit, to rebuild their empire somewhere else in the stars, but this also overlaps with a lot of other things that were going on in their empire during the back end of days. The Aruns catfolk, Roxy, lizard folk, Tripkeys, Venarans, who were all basically servants of them, rebelled. So basically the various species that had been under them and had been enslaved by them were also putting up a very good resistance during this ancient time, around the time of Earthfall, that could have led to more of this. And basically the survivors kind of continued on into what would become the Valashai jungle and what would be beyond the Age of Darkness and what is the time period of the rise of humans and TNZs and all those empires of humanity and other likes that came in afterwards. The fact is that most of what we know from the Valashai is in the Valashai jungle because Valashmai is hard to settle. It's filled with kaiju and monsters and strange mutants and things left over from the Valashai Empire. Some of their experiments and dark magics and stuff like that still twist parts of the jungle. The remainder there, it means that the evidence of what they were is so scant, though. The jungle eats all. But there is that there. We know they were massive creatures, the Valashai. We're going to talk about them more, but if you see their ruins, they are built for creatures 3 times the size of a human. Massive, powerful, alien creatures. The jungle gets its name from them. That's an important thought about this, too. They have that legacy in the jungle. Basically, they erected their grand halls, their experiment chambers, and were brutal taskmasters that had conquered. But they're no more. As far as we know, abandoned the planet, or died off, or whatever. But the old machinery, bioengineered horrors, and scars left over on those are still there, and may never go away. It may never disappear from. Now, I don't have a good picture of what the Valashai should look for, but I did begin an alien reptilian race here to give you an idea about how reptilian star travelers might be. This is the Vesk from Starfinder. They're not the same. But again, I'm using them as a stand-in in this way because they are a reptilian conqueror. And a lot. The Veskarium is something like that. There could be a possibility they're related. You know, after thousands of years. The Valashai could be an offshoot of them. They could not be at all. They could be an entirely different alien race. The fact is, you know, there's a lot of things that go on with the star-based stuff outside of Starfinder we don't know about. And so, yeah, a lot of that history that's going on during the time period of Golarion, we know about it, when we know there's star-based travelers and alien species and all these kind of things and ancient empires that have risen into the stars that have an effect. In Starfinder, many, many years in the future, we don't know as much what they're going on with now. So, again, the loss of the Valashai, the disappearance of them, you know, the crushing of the Jade hegemony under them in a lot of ways, what remains of it, and building their empire, not a lot is known. So much is missing. But Valashai, they're reptilian. They are huge, like 15 feet tall, 15 to 18 feet tall. And what kind of reptilian? That's also something that's not really revealed. Are they more crocodilian, more lizard-like, turtle? You know, reptilian means something, but it doesn't mean a lot sometimes. So it's another one of those things that there's a lot of questions. And yes, the Vesk are more probably lizard-like than anything. Maybe a little crocodilian. But again, reptilian says something. It doesn't give us the full picture of what the Valashai was. And the Valashai Empire is this thing of, if you're going to have strange technology, strange mutant creatures, strange ruins in the Valashai jungle, you might be exploring Valashai Empire stuff. The Valashmai jungle. Valashmai, Valashai. I keep doing that and trying to say them different. I keep doing that. But there you go. There's not a lot here. I'm going to confess to that. But I wanted to talk about this because it is something that if you are having adventures in certain regions of TNZ, you might encounter. And you might want to run that. These are ancient ruins that, yeah, Earthfall caused the eventual final nail in the coffin of the Valashai Empire. But Earthfall, and you have to think about all the stuff that's left over from Golgon, Aslanti, Thassalon, all these other grand empires that are just as old, if not, younger, but at least just as old for the downfall of the Valashai. Yes, the jungles eat that up, make things disappear, but it doesn't get rid of it all. And with them being alien invaders that conquered this region and probably have a mixture of biotechnology and maybe some magic in there, they might have things in there that would survive the thousands of years that have gone by. There are so many questions about what was going on with there, and it's one of those things is, yes, we talk about it a little bit. But all these ancient empires do have ruins and things left over and cultures that we can learn about and are very interesting to explore. Your characters, your adventurers, your Pathfinders can go into these ruins, discover things, deal with threats that are left over from these ancient places. And the Valashai Empire, with their grand creatures that they were, massive reptilian beasts that basically conquered, enslaved, and made horrific experiments and monsters. They are a fascinating and dangerous thing. And them and what they did could result in maybe some of those kaiju. Or at least attracted them to the jungle. There's a reason they're there. And it could be the Valashai. It's just one of the many reasons. But I will leave things there. I do hope you enjoyed exploring this here. It was a brief one, but I thought it was an interesting one to talk about because, again, I use this in one of my adventures. Make sure to check out the rest of my stuff on YouTube and Twitch. If I'm live on Twitch, I record tabletop stuff, I stream tabletop stuff, I do some games, I do stuff with friends. Check it all out. All the tabletop stuff is what gets uploaded over on the YouTube side. Check it out over there. Make sure if you're on YouTube, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this comment. Do you have some ideas for some adventures based around the ruins of the Valashai Empire? Maybe bringing back a Valashai? What kind of creature would you make other than we know it's giant reptilian? I'm interested in what you do. Could be more serpent-like. There are serpent folk and stuff like that. Could be more snake-like. There's all, non-gaji and stuff like that. There's a lot of options out there. Anyway, do make sure to check out my social media. And until the next time, talk about tabletop, Golarion or otherwise. I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.